Hi, I'm Ed Horstman, and welcome to the Wednesday morning e-blast from Round Hill Community Church in Greenwich, Connecticut. Two of my favorite characters in the Bible are Abraham and Sarah. They were well into their elder years when God appeared and called them out of the blue to leave their home and their family and everything familiar to go on an epic journey of faith. And God also promised them a child along the way, and said that from that child there would be even more descendants, and those descendants would be more numerous than the stars in the sky. That was a pretty huge promise, and for a long time it didn't seem like that promise was going to come true. But then one day, 3 visitors showed up at the tent of Abraham and Sarah, and one of those visitors reminded Abraham of the promise and said that Sarah would indeed give birth to a child, and Sarah overheard the conversation and she laughed, because she really didn't believe that it was going to come true. And the visitor asked her, "So, Sarah, why did you laugh?" And she tried to deny it, but there was no hiding the fact that she had laughed. And why not? After all they had been through and at their stage of life, how could they have believed that this dream would actually come true? But it did. So I think about their story because there may be times, these days especially, when we're moving towards a slightly more promising future. Things are beginning to open up, and nevertheless, there may be times when we're also a little discouraged and maybe disheartened that progress isn't as fast as we would like it. So at times like that, I think about Abraham and Sarah and their incredible resilience and how patient they had to be. And I also think about this quotation from the Reverend Cameron Trimble. I've shared it before as part of a Wednesday e-blast, but I return to it often because I found it during the very beginning of the global pandemic, and I've gone to it for refreshment often during these past weeks. Here's what she says. "I want to ask you to consider that on the other side of this, a better world could be waiting for us. Einstein said no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. The scale of this crisis invites us to tap into a new level of consciousness to engage it. We will be different on the other side. We are developing a new way of knowing the world, one rooted in deeper wisdom that helps us ask the questions of life that matter most." That would be my great hope for this time, that out of this very difficult time, we are really figuring out what matters most, and that we're deciding to put all of our faith and our resources behind that. So we are moving into a more promising future. It will still take time, and we have to be patient and resilient. But I want you to know that our Reopening the Campus Committee is hard at work. They've been meeting and have made an initial report to the Board of Trustees, and very soon they will be making recommendations to the board so that we can begin to reopen the campus, and it will be great to enjoy the sanctuary of this beautiful campus as we begin to worship together in a physical space that we can share with one another. I also want to share with you, as part of this Wednesday e-blast, and you will see it in our materials that we're sharing with you for this Wednesday, a statement from the Greenwich Fellowship of Clergy. We are joining our voices to all of those people across our country and now across the world who are crying out for and demanding a world of greater racial equality and equality for all persons in every possible way. So I invite you to read that statement, and also I invite you to consider how it is that each of us as individuals can be part of that movement for greater justice and reconciliation. God calls us and equips us just like God called Abraham and Sarah. So who knows where that journey might lead, but we pray that it's a journey towards greater justice. And also some good news in terms of outreach. Even though we've been in quarantine, there have been some creative ways in which people have been able to reach out to our community with concern. I want to thank all of the volunteers who created face masks for the Greenwich Boys and Girls Club. They contributed 80 masks, and in addition to that, the outreach committee approved an expenditure of $1,783 to purchase 400 masks for the students there. And more volunteers from the congregation and from the community are continuing to be part of that. So we are very grateful for all of the ways in which people have continued to reach out with loving concern, both within our congregation and out to the wider world. That's what God calls us to do, to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So blessings to each one of you as this week unfolds, and may the Spirit of God continue to give you grace and peace for the living of these days. Blessings.